Welcome back, everyone, to the second episode of Star Wars Unveiled.
That's right.
So, previously we discussed the Death Star, right? We talked about what the Death Star really is underneath the veil, the sort of hidden subliminal thing that George Lucas did with the Death Star. And we got a lot of interesting responses. If you are courageous and want to go even further behind the veil with Star Wars, this series is going to be for you. We're still kind of figuring out how to present everything, right? Because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of mythology behind Star Wars. When Lucas said that he studied mythology and fairy tales, he wasn't kidding. And if you do the same thing, you'll see this stuff too.
Yeah, it's well known that he was an anthropology major, so he would have known about all this stuff very well, yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, this next piece is going to be about the character of Yoda. That's what this video is about. Mm-hmm. So Yoda, of course, Yoda first appears in The Empire Strikes Back, right? And I've seen George Lucas talk about Yoda before. He says he's a mystery character and he doesn't know where he comes from. Those are George Lucas's words. I can find the video for that. And he also likens him to a little frog on the side of the road. He said in one of the videos, he said Yoda's like a little frog on the side of a road in a fairy tale. You think he's, inconsequential, but really, he's got this like hidden knowledge or whatever, which is an interesting thing.
Yeah. And you think he's almost a reiteration of Ben, with obviously changes, but Ben Kenobi, because Ben Kenobi was originally going to survive through the series.
Right.
But he decided to kill him off, so we needed a replacement, more or less, for Ben. And we were watching the movie on May the 4th, and as we were getting to sort of the middle of the film where Yoda is going through his whole transformation on Dagobah, you mentioned that
Luke was going through his transformation.
Yes, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Yoda said.
Oh,
Yoda. Yeah. Where Luke is going through his transformation on Dagobah through Yoda, with Yoda.
Yeah. And you had said that Yoda seems to be a sort of hermetic figure.
He does seem to be a sort of hermetic figure. He's got these, and that's why I've got my hermetic look on today. This is actually, I'm going to try to look more hermetic for you guys.
Hermetic apprentice.
This is actually, I got this in Morocco, you guys. It's called a jleba. And the Moroccans, they wear this, they walk around and stuff like this, just
jleba,
casually.
New Star Wars race, jleba.
Oh my god. Anyway, I'm sorry. I wore it, it was just too perfect for the video, so I got my jleba on for this, because we're unveiling Yoda, right?
Yes.
So, Yoda appears to Luke in Empire Strikes Back, right? And he appears again, like George Lucas said, as a sort of insignificant character, a fairy tale frog on the side of the road who you don't think is consequential, but really unlocks something for you. Now, I was starting to think of Yoda as being something even a little more specific than that. And I looked at the original concept art for Yoda, and we're going to put that up now. So the original concept art for Yoda looks to me like kind of like a garden gnome, right? Like a little guy with like a beard and a red hat, like the garden gnomes, the sort of, I guess they're German, I don't know where they come from. The garden gnomes you'd see in like a lonely old guy's house or something. Now, but behind even that, I saw something else. Because again, I was thinking through this mythological lens that George Lucas used to create Star Wars. Now, here it is. This is what Yoda, the original Yoda concept art, I know was really based on. This is the character of Hermes Trismegistus, who in mythology is a kind of psychopomp who leads you through the underworld, right? Which is like the unconscious, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens to Luke when he's on Dagobah. He goes through his subconscious when he meets Vader, and then he sees that Vader is in a way himself, and he has that whole, literally a mystical vision in a very dark cave. And when you looked up, it's cool to have these theories, and then when you look it up, it's sort of visually confirmed.
Yes,
and it was
visually confirmed and structurally confirmed. So yeah, in Jungian psychology, the complexes are in the unconscious, right? We're not conscious of them. They're in the sort of shadow. It's like a descent. So Luke makes a physical descent into the unconscious with the help of this hermetic figure who leads you through into your unconscious. It's a sort of imaginary friend, right? And in the unconscious are the the complexes, right? So Luke goes deep into his unconscious to encounter his father complex. That's what that scene is. That's exactly what that scene is on Dagobah.
Yeah. It's also worth noting, jumping off of that Lucas was good friends with Joseph Campbell, who made the point that Star Wars is actually about inner space and not outer space.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what we see there. So I didn't really know much about Hermes Trismegistus, but I did a lot of reading on him, and we're still kind of not, at least I don't fully understand his, the description of him online. It says he's an amalgamation of two gods from two different...
a syncretic combination is the terminology they use.
He's half Greek Hermes, and then he's half Egyptian Thoth. And somehow that comes together to make this old guy.
And remember how he said that word just then, Thoth.
Yeah, so I was reading about that, and I noticed that Thoth is representative of the moon and a lot of other things in Egyptian mythology, and I realized that that's how George pronounces the planet Hoth. We say Hoth.
I've been saying Hoth my whole life.
Yeah, everyone says Hoth.
Everyone says Hoth.
But there's one short clip, thank you to one of the people in the Discord that actually found it for me.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah.
George says it.
The most difficult and challenging location was in Norway, Finsko, the Hoth ice planet.
Like Hoth.
Hoth.
Yeah.
we'll spice it in there. Very interesting. And this might be a stretch, but I just noticed visually in the depiction of Hermes pointing to the sun and the moon, the three planets that we have in Star Wars are, we start on Hoth, we go to Dagobah, and then we end in Bespin. And Hoth is like this sort of white, or sort of, should I say, Hoth is this white moon-like planet that is named after, supposedly, maybe, this god or goddess Thoth, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes to Dagobah, which is this lush planet brimming with wildlife, very green, where he meets Yoda, and we see that this Trismegistus figure is standing on a very lush landscape, and then he ends, and where he sort of ascends and discovers himself, and he takes a large step into becoming a Jedi, is on Bespin, which is this gas giant, very orange, very bright. It's always sunny because it's just this gas giant, looks kind of like a sun. So that might be a stretch, but I just noticed that the three planets kind of visually depict the three orbs or planets in the picture of Hermes Trismegistus.
And here's why I don't think that's a stretch at all. If you go all the way back to THX 1138, George Lucas' student film from, I think, 1969, at the very end of the film, the main character makes his ascent from an underworld of sorts and encounters the sun. He comes to, that's full consciousness. Yeah. That's what that means. It's coming to consciousness. And like, it's the final scene of the movie, and Bach is playing in the background. And it's the same exact trajectory. I mean, it's not the planets, it's not a one-to-one comparison. But you end up with, the main character, as he goes through the underworld, the unconscious, ends up at a sun-like planet of bright, full consciousness.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that maybe we're on something there. I kept reading about Hermeticism and Hermes Trismegistus, and it brought me on on one of the threads I was reading about mentioned the KYBALION, which is supposedly the beginner's guide to true Hermeticism. A lot of cool stuff in here, a lot of crazy stuff in here. It was first published in 1908. And it's super cool. You just look at it, it's like, oh, I want to, this is cool, it looks cool. But it's like a lot of that spiritual stuff with like rocks and orbs and stuff that looks really aesthetically cool, but it also looks like, if you follow this path, you should become a fire god or something. So it's it kind of bums you out when it doesn't happen.
It gets a little new age,
exactly.
A little fanciful,
yes,
right?
Yes.
It's not really,
Yeah. However, I mean, everything I could find online did point to this being sort of the first step into Hermeticism. And while some of it's a little wacky, not thinking of it in terms of like, oh, I want to follow this philosophy myself, or I want to, dedicate my life to Hermeticism, you can get a lot of what happens in Star Wars from this book. So I read this whole thing within like 2 days. It's not that huge. It's like sort of a pocket guide, but it's a lot to take in. So I put down a few quotes and stuff. The first one, I guess was one of the first ones that came out to me, that jumped out at me. It said, this is a direct quote from the book, "When you die, you will become one with the all." So the all is just literally everything, and of course you could take that in Star Wars terms as being the Force.
Yeah.
It says in the beginning that everyone is connected to the all flows through us, right? Like it's all the exact same terminology.
Same terminology. And I think in the KYBALION, or in the Greek, it's like nous, like N-O-U-S, which in some translations is translated to source. So you go back to the source.
Yes,
George Lucas took one letter and just switched it. He's like, all right, you go back to the source, the Force. It's like what he did with Yoda. He's got Luke doing yoga on freaking the Dagobah.
Thoth and Hoth.
Thoth and Hoth. He's got Luke doing Yoda has Luke doing yoga, and he just changes one letter, and it's buried, and nobody gets it.
So what's the planet Mon Calamari supposed to be? My fish.
My fish. You just messed. I don't even know.
But yeah, so it literally says you'll become one with the all when you die. Yoda's always talking about becoming one with the Force, right? Do not rejoice for those who, become part of the Force. In the beginning, they say, we do not believe in casting pearls before swine. And there was a huge part about, like, only a few people in each generation will carry this torch. And it was really just kind of down-talking the masses. It was saying most people don't have the patience for this, they're not going to get it. And it reminded me of how Yoda is fed up with Luke in the beginning. Like, he looks up to Ben, he's like, he's not ready yet. I can't teach it to this guy. And that's exactly what happens in the original trilogy, is the flame is passed from Yoda to Luke, and, like, that's it.
And he has the same attitude as the Hermetic people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always a few faithful souls that keep the flame alive, passed along from master to student. Okay, so, yeah.
This is a one-to-one.
For sure.
Emmett found all the KYBALION stuff. I never read the KYBALION.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I just... When you mentioned Hermes Trismegistus, it just blew open this whole thing.
Yeah.
For some reason, when I saw this, I was like, there's probably more to... Well, this is, like, I guess, the sort of, guide to Hermeticism, so this is naturally where it took me.
Good job.
Thanks. So, there's 7 principles of truth, and this is when it gets, like, way crazy literal. I did not expect it to be this exact.
I haven't heard this stuff yet, so
Okay,
I'm encountering it at the same time as you guys.
So I'm just going to give you a sort of ambiguation here. So the first one is the principle of mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental, a universe infinite, living mind, matter is subordinate. Matter is subordinate to the mastery of mind. So that's the big thing. The next one is the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. There is correspondence between laws and phenomena. There are planes beyond our knowing. We can enable man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. Vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves and vibrates. The higher the vibration, the higher it is in the scale. We can enable students to control their own mental vibrations as well as those of others. Polarity. Like and unlike are the same. Extremes meet. All truths are half-truths. Everything is dual. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of duality, two sides of the coin type stuff in this thing. Rhythm, everything flows out and in, tides. The measure of the swing to the right is the same as the swing to the left. Action and reaction. The mental law, it talks about the mental law of neutralization, and it says learn how to use it instead of being used by it. There's this huge thing about swinging yourself to one pole and then neutralizing the rhythm so you can stay at that pole.
Oh, like becoming a Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it talked about like love and hate and light and dark and stuff. So you could say that the Jedi swing themselves to the light and find, some sort of stillness there because they neutralize their swing, and then the Sith, swing themselves to the dark and neutralize their rhythm there. So the main two things, and especially when this book is really funny because it was like, I jived with it and I understood it and I agreed with it for the most part. And the deeper you go, the crazier it gets. So
I don't know if I want to read it.
No. Yeah. So it goes into depth about each thing, and when it talks about principle of mentalism and vibration, I will see. I'll just put it down in the comments if I can find the exact page and like the exact quote. But it talks about telekinesis and mind tricks. So which are the exact ways the Force
is used
in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
You don't need
Jedi mind tricks.
Mind tricks.
Yeah.
And then Vader's throwing all those boxes at Luke when they're in their fight on Bespin. So those exact two things are how you can manifest this ethereal power. And it even talked about like there's an ethereal void that you can tap into, which is like it's the Force. It's
literally
exactly
the Force. Yeah.
And then there's a really cool part here that exactly described Anakin's path. It also says very literally that there are sort of tiers of consciousness. You can get higher and higher towards the heavens, and so I guess you could say like Jedi are kind of like archangels, and then it also says they're gods. We'll get to that in a minute, but here it says, this it may be said that those who have attained high spiritual powers and have misused them have terrible fate in store for them, and the swing of the pendulum of rhythm will inevitably swing them back to the furthest extreme of material existence, from which point they must retrace their steps spiritward along the weary rounds of the path, but always with added torture of having always with them a lingering memory of the heights from which they fell, owing to their evil actions.
Anakin.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly,
yeah.
Anakin.
The legends of the fallen angels have a basis in fact, as all advanced occultists know. This is spooky and cool.
Man.
The striving for self-power on the spiritual planes inevitably results in the selfish soul losing its spiritual balance and falling back as far as it had previously risen. But to even such a soul, the opportunity of a return is given.
Wow.
And such souls make the return journey, paying a terrible penalty according to the invariable law.
Wow.
So that explains Anakin's whole
arc.
in
And
one
like
little paragraph.
George Lucas said, Anakin does fulfill the prophecy, and he's redeemed by his son.
Exactly.
That's George Lucas's exact words.
Yeah.
What about? All right. Do you remember? Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that. Let me see if I can find that.
The Yoda quote. Yeah.
Yes.
So what was the exact Yoda quote? Do you remember? Just Yoda.
Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to
Suffering.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Yes.
That is a truncated version of a teaching of Hermes Trismegistus, which is we're gonna put it up here when we find it. But yeah, again, Yoda and Hermes Trismegistus.
Yeah.
Hermes says, this ignorance, O son, is the first of these tormentors. The second is sorrow. The third is intemperance. The fourth, lust. The fifth, injustice. The sixth, greed. The seventh, deceit. The eighth, envy. The ninth, treachery. The 10th, anger. The 11th, recklessness. The 12th, malice.
Yeah. So it's like.
So it's like bits of evil sort of like building on each other, on itself until it turns into something.
Yoda's is like the Spark Notes version of that. Right?
It is
So,
exactly the Spark Notes
yeah.
version of that. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Guys, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. There's no.
Yeah.
It's there. You know.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I didn't even know how deep it went until Emmett started talking about the freaking KYBALIon.
It goes super deep. Yeah, here it is. Ethereal substance connects material and has its own degree of vibration. Telepathy through vibration is possible. Every thought and emotion and mental state has a corresponding mode of vibration. One may affect the minds of others. That's exactly from the
exactly.
Yeah.
Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Mind over matter.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, the last thing I was gonna say. George made up the Mortis gods, which I always thought was dumb. I still think it's dumb.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's silly. It's like it's 3 godlike beings that reside on a planet called Mortis in Star Wars, and they have a tremendous influence on the Force. Okay, they're still below the Force. They're below the All, but they have a huge influence on it, and they have just like insane amount of Force power. And that's part of like the Clone Wars TV show, which I don't really jive with. I think gods in Star Wars is a little much. However, when this thing was going through, like, yes, there are higher beings, there are archangels, and that also said there are gods who are below the All, but they have a huge influence on the universe. So it was exactly the Mortis gods.
And it's the 3 initiates or the authors of the KYBALIon,
Yes,
right?
yes, that's right. That's right.
Another one-to-one comparison. One-to-one.
Yeah.
Lucas just stuffed this stuff in there.
Yeah.
He changed like a single letter.
Mhm.
He changed like 2 letters, and it's there. It's been there
Crazy.
forever.
Yeah.
Since Star Wars came out.
So, yeah, Yoda is definitely Hermes Trismegistus. No doubt in my mind about it after reading all this stuff.
Obi-Wan a little bit too, Obi-Wan
for
is more
sure.
of like a Senex archetype, but
Mhm.
Yoda is specifically Hermes Trismegistus.
Yeah. If there's anything I missed, I'll put it down in the comments or the description. But yeah, it's crazy.
This goes
yeah.
deeper than Emmett.
Yeah.
Emmett really
Yeah.
took off with it. I didn't expect it to go that deep with the KYBALIon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we should mention this. There was a whole article on one of the sort of hermetic websites comparing Yoda to Hermes. So once again, we're not the first to do it, but we're probably the second to do it.
Yeah, the second. It's fine. I'll take second place. Yeah.
Let me just read this. Yoda, the Jedi Master in Star Wars, and Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary master associated with Hermeticism, so it wasn't just us, exhibit certain similarities as revered spiritual masters, although they belong to different fictional and philosophical contexts, so we can draw some parallels between them. 1. Wise teachers. Both Yoda and Hermes are renowned as wise teachers who possess profound knowledge and insight. Yoda serves as a mentor and a guide to numerous Jedi apprentices, imparting wisdom and guiding them on their path to enlightenment. Similarly, Hermes is considered a revered spiritual teacher in Hermeticism who serves as a mentor and guide to his students Tat, Asclepius, and Amon, imparting the 3 initiates, imparting wisdom to guide them on their path of enlightenment. Transmitters of esoteric knowledge, 2. Yoda and Hermes are associated with the transmission of esoteric knowledge. Yoda, as a Jedi Master, is responsible for passing on the teachings and traditions of the Order, the Jedi Order, including the ways of the Force and the Jedi Code. Hermes passes on his teachings of the Corpus Hermeticum, a collection of philosophical and spiritual texts, and in his perfect discourse, the Asclepius, whatever. One of his,
I don't know.
One of his students. 3. Emphasis on the inner transformation. Both Yoda and Hermes Trismegistus emphasize the importance of inner transformation. Yoda often instructs his students to look within themselves, to control their emotions, and strive for inner balance. Similarly, Hermes instructs his students to look within themselves, to control their emotions and desires, and strive for inner balance. Yeah, there's a lot about pendulum swinging, blah, 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 the balance. That's the other thing that I kind of forgot. The book talks a lot about the balance, and things will always swing one way or the other.
Balance. The force always goes one way or another. It's never. It is a pendulum. It never evens out. It can't.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah. 4. Mastery of universal forces. Yoda and Hermes are depicted as individuals who have mastered their inner potential and learned the deepest metaphysical truths. Yoda's deep understanding of the Force enables him to tap into its power and guide others in their connection to it. The deep connections Hermes has with Nous enable him to tap into its knowledge and guide others in their connections to it. 5. Symbolic representation. Yoda and Hermes have become symbolic representations of wisdom and spiritual insight in popular culture. Yeah, that's kind of like, because Hermes back in the day was like, here's the smart guy, and now in popular culture, in modern times, Yoda is like the wise guy, so they really do embody the same thing. They embody the archetype of the wise old sage, revered for their vast knowledge and profound understanding of the mysteries of the universe. Yeah, so, yeah, it wasn't just us.
No, yeah, but some people have pointed it out before.
But this was on like a Hermeticism website that's probably very closed off and not a lot of people go to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something else about Yoda. Yoda's 900 years old, right? In the Bible, like in the Old Testament, the really early humans are like live to be like 900 years old, and then 800, and then 700, and it keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter until you get to like David or Solomon, and then they just live like regular, I think like 70, 80. That's supposed to be a callback to the Garden of Eden. So God's intention, original intention for humankind before we ate the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, was for us to live forever. So it's like every generation we get farther from that, like so Yoda's supposed to be like an ancient character who's closer to like the sort of state of, it would be called a plemora state of undifferentiated consciousness. Like he'd be from like way back, from like before, you know, the expulsion from Eden in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. That's cool. That's very. In the KYBALION too, it talks about like it was like very few masters of old were able to, you know, really tap into this, and yeah, they could do. It just kind of hinted that they could do supernatural things and could live a long time and stuff like that. So wow. Yeah. Man. But yeah, there it is, guys. It is weird, kind of pulling the rug out from Star Wars.
It feels weird, doesn't it?
Exactly what it is.
It feels weird. Yeah.
But
thank you guys for sitting through this and listening to all this.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I know it's a lot.
This thing's really easy to get a hold of. You can get it for a PDF for free online, actually. So if you want to make your own comparisons and just check it out. Obviously, a lot of stuff pulls from this, not just Star Wars. I mean, just looking at the cover, we have the Harry Potter thing.
Yeah, I mean, J.K. Rowling, that's pretty. I mean, her first book was called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So there's like the alchemy stuff was like front and center, and with J.K. Rowling, whereas with George Lucas it was a little more thinly veiled.
Very true. Yeah. Well, there it is. Let us know what you think. And as I said, I'm going to go in the description there, and I'm going to kind of add everything more congruently. And if I miss anything out, I'll add it there. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Emmett. Hey, thank you for the all that KYBALION stuff.
Yeah, crazy.
Incredible.
See you guys later.
Whew.